Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for our event on cloud observability and how Google Cloud Operations can help manage and improve it. My name is Lauren, and I'm the content manager for the Google Cloud community. Joining us today is technical account manager Vitor Barbosa, who will be taking us through the content and answering your questions today. If you have any questions, those are encouraged, so please feel free to use the YouTube chat box, and we'll be sure to get to them either in the chat or at the end of the presentation. We do have a few pre-submitted questions, which we'll cover first. And for any that we don't get to, we will be covering them in a recap blog post, which will be available in the Google Cloud community. And you can find a link to that in the YouTube description. Okay, with this, I will hand it over to Vitor, and you can take us through the content today.
Okay, thanks, Lauren. And hi, everyone. Thank you and you over the cloud that are watching us today. We're going to talk about cloud observability and cloud operations and how the cloud operations stacks manages observability and improves the subject. Okay. So we're going to talk about what is observability, an overview about all the aspects that surrounds the subject, and a quick overview about cloud operations and the components of cloud operations stack. Then I will show you some hands-on with a live example that I built here to show how things are connected and how cloud operations can correlate the observability pillars to give us a better monitoring and a better observability. And then we have some Q&A. As Lauren said, we have some pre-submitted questions that you guys submitted before the sign-up process. And then we're gonna hit some questions from the chat, okay? So let's do it. So my name is Vitor Barbosa. I'm a technical account manager here at Google, based in São Paulo, Brazil. I have some years on IT experience. I began as a field services technician on a data center, and then I was raising up to the cloud. Now I'm here on Google Cloud. It's kind of romantic. And I work as a cloud specialist, DevOps engineer, and I'm a 10 here at Google, and I'm also a subject matter expert on the observability team and on the cloud operation stack. Okay. And what is observability? When we think about that, the first thing that comes to mind is monitor, right? It's monitor stuff for the people that are on IT for a long time. We think about Nagios, Zabbix, and all those monitoring tools. We also think about metrics, things like that. And the first thing to say is that this is just a little part of the observability as a whole. Okay, so observability is basically to be able to proactively knows the health of my systems and proactively know what is going wrong with my systems, with my ecosystem, my architecture, my servers. And to be able to do this, I need a lot of things combined, such as monitoring is a part of that, and also tracing, logs, metrics, and profiling tools. So there's a lot of things that we can stack up to do observability, okay? And to do a quick resume about all those things when I need to define what observability fully is, we used to use these observability pillars. Just let me see if I can get a pointer. Okay, awesome. So observability basically is these three aspects, these three dimensions combined. Okay, so we have metrics, logs, and traces, and these three pillars are combined and are tied together. Okay, it's kind of like a marriage; they are all working together. Okay, when I talk about metrics, metrics is basically a dimension with a value in a point in time. Okay, for example, the CPU usage of the server web 01 is at 18%, at 3 o'clock. So it's a dimension, the CPU usage of the server web 01 at 3 o'clock at this point in time. So this is basically what a metric is, okay? And with a lot of metrics, we can monitor the state of this dimension. So basically, this is a metrics. So when we think about traditional monitoring tools, most of the time we are dealing with metrics, okay? So we are dealing with just this part of the observability as a whole, okay? And aside of metrics, we have logs, which is the events that are running, that are happening in my system, in my server. So I have registering all the things that are happening in my server in that time. So this is logs. And I have traces, which is a scope of a request or a sample of requests that tells me who made the call, who made the request, how this request was made, what method was used, what path I used in my request, and also the trace tells me the response time. So how long this request does it take to really see what is happening or who calls. So that, in resume, trace is who calls, what response was delivered back to the request, and the response time of all this process. Okay, so this is basically a trace. So with these three combined, fully observability. And why is important? Why observability is so important in my teams, in my ecosystems, in my applications. First thing, we have a research. It's a research about DevOps adoption, DevOps usage across the companies. And at this research, we find out that a comprehensive monitoring and observability solution, along with a number of other technical practices, contributes to the continuous delivery. So when I have observability, my applications is more reliable. The teams that has observability at the core, they are developing their applications, thinking about observability, thinking about what metrics is needed to monitor the system, what logs will be sent to follow up what is going on with the system. So teams that have observability at the core during all the cycle of the delivery has more reliable applications. It's kind of obvious, but it's a good point to see how important is observability. Okay, and also as we are growing with cloud adoption and companies are more focused on business, and the cloud provider is taking care of all the infrastructure and all the other things, observability is a strong ally in that journey, because I have a part of my company is with a different provider. So observability is very important to see what is going on there. Okay, so basically this is why it's important to have observability. And we have some challenges about it. As the complexity increases, so the applications are becoming more complex because we are using microservices. There's a lot of containers with pieces of my application running here and there, and there's a lot of events going on, and my application is hosted in different places, different providers, so it's kind of harder to the correlation becomes harder. It's kind of hard to correlate all the things that are happening in my system because of that microservices proliferation and that independence of all of the components of my application. Okay, so this is one aspect that this becomes harder. Also, when lift and shift doesn't work, for example, I have a legacy application running in my data center with a legacy monitoring solution to full monitor this application. And I can integrate this solution with all the other solutions that I have to monitor my new systems. So this is one of the challenges too. Also, we have too much noise and poor signal. So the quality of those noise are not good. For example, I have a lot of monitoring tools, gathering metrics for a lot of systems. I have a lot of logs being written on different tools, but do we actually know what's wrong when I have a problem? All those tools are really useful to provide me observability to fully knows what's wrong in the system. So this is also a challenge. And also competing standards from vendors and community, where I can lead to data silos. So, for example, I have a monitoring tool and I have a logging tool, and I can integrate these two solutions because they are not compatible, they are not using the same standards, they are from different vendors and stuff like that. So this can also be a challenge when I need to correlate this data, when I need to do the marriage between these three pillars. Okay, so this is one of those challenges too. And thinking about that, especially focused on Google Cloud, we have Google Cloud Operations, which is our stack for observability. So CloudOps basically is our observability solution for Google Cloud and beyond, because we can connect on-prem services, we can connect other clouds, but it's the solution for observability in Google Cloud ecosystems. If you are familiar with Google Cloud, probably you remember Stackdriver. Stackdriver was the first solution that Google's brings to monitor Google Cloud resources. And CloudOps is kind of evolution of Stackdriver. Okay, and the objective is to provide observability. To do this, we have basically three big modules on CloudOps. Okay, the first one is cloud monitoring. It's our metrics. It's our metrics module. So it provides metrics and all the resources that I need to monitor these metrics, create alerts, dashboards, and all that kind of stuff that I need. We also have cloud logging, which is our solution for logs and events. So we centralize all the logs into the cloud logging, and he also provides me tools to analyze those logs, getting trends, getting insights, look for the errors, create dashboards, metrics, and alerts using those logs, and also some additional features for tracing, for profiling, for a lot of other aspects that can help me into observability. Okay, so giving more details about cloud monitoring. First thing that I think it's the coolest, we have automatically metrics ingestion across GCP services. Okay, we have over, I think it's not only 5,000. I think we are close to 6,000 metrics. There are a lot of metrics for all our service, and those metrics are immediately available with no cost. So when I deploy a compute engine VM, for example, there's a lot of metrics that are automatically configured to be collected into cloud monitoring, and I can out of the box have monitoring, create alerts, and I have a lot of out of the box dashboards that I can use to proper monitor those resources. Okay. Cloud monitoring is also based on open source standards. So in its backends, we are basically talking about Prometheus and OpenTelemetry. Okay, so basically it's compatible with these two solutions. I can also customize my metrics for my workloads. So I can bring custom metrics through CloudOps agent, through the API, or I can use the managed service for Prometheus, which is one of our newest solutions to gather metrics from my application, from my services, and send them to cloud monitoring. And I have a lot of in-context visualizations, alerts. I can create dashboards, and I can do all kind of stuff with those metrics, which I will show in my demonstration. Here's a design of the architecture of cloud monitoring. Basically, we have a collection layer, which services on Google Cloud. We have automatic ingestion, so I don't need to configure anything. Uh, Most of the time, it's just a flag if the flag exists, but the monitoring is kind of automatic on GCP services. Okay. I can have custom metrics from my containers on Kubernetes using Prometheus or the OpenTelemetry. And I can also gather some process and internal operating system metrics on Compute Engine and some third-party application metrics with the CloudOps agent. The CloudOps agent is also an operator for the GMP, so I can use CloudOps agent to scrape metrics to the managed Prometheus. So there's no need to install any additional component. With just one agent, I can do everything, okay? Then all those metrics comes to our API where we store these metrics. And then we have a lot of visualization possibilities where I can create dashboards of time checks. I can create alert policies, notifications. I can export this visualization to third-party tools such as Grafana, Datadog, and a lot of others. And also notifications on third-party tools like PagerDuty, Slack, Webhook, and a lot of other notification channels that I will show you on the demo. Okay, for cloud logging, we have a similar definition. Okay, I also have automatic log ingestion on my applications. So when I deploy a compute engine, I have the logs automatically being ingested to cloud logging. When I deploy a Cloud SQL database, I'll get all the logs automatically being ingested into the tool. So there's no need for proper configuration. Okay. With the logs in cloud logging, I can analyze those logs with tools like error reporting, log explorer, log analytics. There's a plenty of tools to quickly focus on my data and analyze those logs, looking for issues and all kind of stuff. I can customize the routing and the storage. So I can change how my logs will be stored in the cloud logging and where they will be stored. I can change what kind of logs do I want to store. I can create filters to define what logs I will be storing in cloud logging. So I can fully customize where and how these logs arrives at cloud logging. Okay. It also provides me insights in compliance with audit logs and logs from my application that I can customize and put there to find out, compliance patterns and issues, security issues, and things like that. Here's the architecture, very similar to monitoring. So I have my collection layer here with automatic ingestion for my GCP services, also audit logs, and then logs from my containers with the Fluentd on Kubernetes Engine, and logs for my third-party applications and some other internal logs from Compute Engine through CloudOps agent. It's also the same agent for monitoring, just one agent for monitoring logs, GMP. Okay. Uh, and then the logs are sent to our API. The API will check if there are some routers or some sinks to define for where these logs will be stored and stuff like that. We will start those logs, and then we have some layers to visualize and analyze those logs with log analytics, error reporting, log explorer. I can create metrics with those logs. I can create alerts with those logs. And I also can create alerts for the metrics of those logs and put those logs in the dashboards, the metrics on dashboards, create policies, notifications, and all the things that I can do with monitoring. Can also export those logs to external tools like Splunk and Elastic, the Elasticsearch, and can also the same integrations for notifications that I mentioned in cloud monitoring. Okay. We also have CloudTrace. The idea of CloudTrace is to gather traces of your applications and store those traces in Google Cloud, and then we provide interface for you to analyze those traces. And with traces, we can diagnose latency issues, application errors, and where my application is taking time to process all the entire request. So where my latency is in my application. Is my latency when the application is opening a connection with a database, or the latency is where the database delivers all the data back to my app and I deliver this back to the user. So I can have a full vision about what is happening on the application side. CloudTrace is also compatible with OpenTelemetry, so it's based on standards, open source standards. It's compatible with OpenTelemetry. OpenTelemetry has support for the most popular language, developing language that we use. And also CloudTrace is compatible with Zipkin, which is an open source tracing solution. You can kind of connect Zipkin with CloudTrace and using a connector made by the Zipkin community. Okay. This is the architecture. I have here my collection layer with OpenTelemetry to gather my traces and send those traces to my API. When we store those traces, then we can visualize them at the console with the cloud tracing interface. We also have correlations between traces and logs. So if my applications generates logs for those traces, this will be correlated with the trace itself. And then the metrics of monitoring will also be correlated. I will show this on the demo. And I can also export traces data to BigQuery and use Looker to visualize those data, and also can use all the power of BigQuery for analytics purpose using this data. Okay. And we have cloud alerting, where I can create alerts for metrics and for logs, and be notified when an incident using those data occurs. Okay. We have integrations with a lot of channels that we can use to be notified. For example, SMS, email, the cloud mobile app, which is the Google Cloud app for mobile. Can integrate with a webhook for automation and to integration with basically every tool that supports a webhook. PubSub, which also means that I can automate and integrate with basically everything. And third-party apps such as Slack and PagerDuty. Okay. And the alerts I can create. There's a lot of alert type that I can create. I will show that on the console. I think it's better. Okay, and here's an example about how can I use the alerting and how can I leverage alerting with different things. So I have here a cloud storage bucket and two types of alerts. Okay, I have a log-based alert, which means that this will trigger an alert when a specific log entry will be registered, will happen. So in this example, I have this log entry, all users added to permissions, which means that someone uh, placed the all users permissions to a bucket, which means that this bucket is now public, it's now exposed to the internet. So I want to be notified when this thing happens. So when this log occurs, it will trigger an alert that will place this alert in a pub sub topic. And then at pub sub, I have a subscription that will trigger a cloud functions. And this function basically will undo this operation, will remove the all users permission in the bucket, and then we'll notify the user or notify a Slack channel or send an email or things like that, or just undo the operations and okay. So this is kind of how can I bring automation to my alerts and do a proactive troubleshooting or a proactive action in one of my alerts. So I can do like this. And I also have a different alert here, which is an absence alert looking for this metric, which is received bytes for network. Which means if this metrics stops to be stop appearing at monitoring, which means that it will bring new data, which is different from zero. So I have received bytes at zero means that I really don't have bytes received at bucket. But when I have no data or no data, it means that maybe something it is happening on the communication or the application that writes on this bucket. So I need to check what is going on. So I have an absence alert that will triggers a notification to Slack channel. Okay, so uh, I will be able to, I will be notified if about this, and I can act with my operations team or things like that. Okay. All right. So let's go for the hands-on. Let me open my console here. Okay. Let's share here. Okay, we are good. All right, so I'm here at my project, Valbar A. It's my demo project here at Google Cloud. And the first thing that I want to show is how cloud operations are integrated with the console itself. Okay, how Cloud Ops and how observability is part of Google Cloud Console, part of Google Cloud Stack. So the first thing I want to show is, for example, I'm here at Compute Engine, looking to my VM instance. And okay, here I have my instance. There's just one, but what the coolest thing is I have this observability tab right here on the console. And when I click it, bang, I have instant monitoring for my Compute Engine instance. So I have here the top 5 VMs with CPU utilization. So the top 5 VMs using more CPU. I have just one here, so it's not too sexy, but okay. I have my top 5 VMs by memory utilization, network traffic, my throughput, disk utilization, process. So I have here a basic monitoring ready to be used on my for my virtual machines. Okay, so from here I can create alerts if I want to create an alert to be notified about the CPU of my VMs. I can just click here and we have create alerting policy, and then it will right direct me right through the alert policy creation. Okay, then I create here an alert, and okay, I am monitored. I'm monitoring CPU utilization. If I want to use this graphic at a custom dashboard, I can also use here right away. I have this button, and I can add to custom dashboard, and then I just choose the title of this chart and a dashboard where I want to put it. Just let go here a new dashboard and put here. Let's call this done webinar and submit. And okay, it's right there at monitoring dashboards, and I can have it monitoring there. Okay, so this is the first thing. Monitoring is at the console. It's part of the console. If I'm looking to a specific VM, let me click here at web app 01. And then I also have this observability tab. And here is all the metrics for my VM. I can monitor from here. I can create alerts from here, add to custom dashboards. And I also have my logs right here. And I can see all the logs, the audit logs, application, and the logs from agent, errors, system events. I can filter the severity of the logs, filter any other value right here, and I have the logs for my VM directly here on the console. Okay, this is the first thing. Most of the services has this observability tab. Some services it's monitoring. It's the monitoring tab. We are kind of updating it, but it's very and start looking at my resources metrics and resources logs. Okay, right from here. Uh, and also I have a dedicated monitoring section. Okay, when I can manage my dashboards. Here's all my dashboards. Here is the 10 webinar dashboard we created right now. Let's check. Yeah, here's the chart that we added from the VM screen. So it's very easy to add things here. And I can add a lot of different elements on my dashboard. So line charts, stacked area, stacked bar charts, heat map, tables, gauge, scorecard, a logs panel. I can put here at the dashboard a panel with the logs of my server, and it's very easy to build it. It's very similar to tools like Grafana and other tools to visualize dashboards. Okay, so I can create. There's a lot of things that I can use to build it. After I build my dashboard, I can share with my friends just here. Put the people or a group of emails that you want to share, some welcome message for them. And if I want to send the dashboard in a specific time range for them to look into a specific period or something like that, and then I can copy this link or just send it by email, okay? And it will send the link with all the filters and all the configurations that you put into the dashboard to see the information, okay? Also, monitoring and logging are very integrated, so I can go directly to the logs through the dashboard. For example, if I'm looking at this spike here, okay, this is the spike. Here, it will update the log here, but I have this view logs shortcut, and this will brings me into the logging section at the exactly timestamp, at the exactly period that I was looking at the dashboard. Okay. Logging is also integrated with monitoring, and I can correlate the logs with the metrics. For example, here's my log, and I have here web app 01, which is my VM instance, and I can click here, the name of the instance, and I have this option, view monitoring details. When I click it, it will brings me this beautiful floating screen with my metrics of this VM and a flag mentioning the exactly point in time that this log, this line of the log happened. Okay, so when my server logged this message here, this is how my CPU was in the machine, how my memory was, my memory utilization in the machine, my network traffic, my disk space, so the connections, the logs by severity, so I can match, you know, logs with the metrics and have a real vision about how my machine was when these logs happened. Okay. The same for Cloud Trace. If I have a trace and the trace generates a log, I can see the logs generated when this trace happens. And then through the logs, I can see the metrics and how was my machine and the state of my machine when this message occurs. Okay, so it's all tied together. This is correlation between metrics, logs, and trace, and this is really what observability is in a full way. Okay, so here I can see exactly when it happens. Let's see a different one. And there, okay. There's not much to see here because it's just a sample machine. But basically here is where I can correlate all those aspects. Okay, another thing that I have here at monitoring is the metric scope. So I can set the scope of my metrics. For example, this is Valbar A, my project, and also at Valbar A, I have Valbar B as a monitored project, which means that I can see the metrics for Valbar B resources in Valbar A project. So I don't need to change here to Valbar B to see metrics for the service, to create dashboards using metrics from both projects, create alerts using metrics from both projects. So I can have a centralized project to monitor all my other projects using the metric scope solution. Or I can have all the projects related to a specific application monitored in a centralized project. So it's a very cool feature to centralize your monitoring. Okay. So we have dashboards. We have here the metrics explorer where we can explore the metrics. You just gather a metric here by resource. For example, VM instance, metrics for my instance, CPU utilization. And then we have the metric here. And I can save this as a chart on my dashboard, on my custom dashboard, to be using, to monitoring on a dashboard. And there's a lot of cool features here, like a time shift. I can see exactly how this metric was 5 hours ago, 1 hour ago, 1 day ago, and I can specify a period here. So this is very useful to do capacity planning, to analyze if a resource's behavior is exactly the same as the last week, or if it's changed because of some different event that happens today. So it's a very cool feature to do a comparison between metrics. Okay, so it's very, very cool. Uh, let's save this and put in our dashboard. And let's go to this dashboard. Okay, here it is. And from here I can create an alert. For example, convert to an alert chart. And here is the metric. I can filter, I can customize the metric the way I want, and I can create alerts for those metrics. Okay, I can change a rolling window. So here I will look into 1 minute of CPU utilization, in the mean CPU utilization, the average CPU utilization in the last in the 1 minute, or in the last 5 minutes. I can here configure that. After I make all my adjustments here of how I want to see the metrics, I can also put more metrics and more conditions for the same alarm. I configure my trigger and the condition for the alert to be triggered. So I have a threshold. If it meets above or below a threshold, it will generate an alert, or a metric absence. If this metric has no data, it will generate an alert, or a forecast alert. So it's a projected threshold. So in the next 1 hour, if the CPU will be above my threshold, to generate an alert. This is a new feature, forecasting alerts. It's very cool too. And it needs some time to train the model to do the forecasting. Okay, needs twice the forecast window. So for example here, to be able to forecast the next 1 hour, I need 2 hours for the model to be trained, and then the alert will start working. Okay, it's a very good feature. So here I configure my trigger, the notification channel, who will be notified about this alert, if I will auto close it. I can put some labels to customize this alert, place some documentation. Documentation here accepts Markdown, so you can put some fancy formatting in your documentation. Accepts also variables, channel specific controls if you send this to a Slack channel or things like that. The name of your alert, and then we create, and this will be monitored and will generate alerts since the condition are met. Okay, I can create alerts for my metrics and also from my logging here on Log Explorer. Okay, here I can make my query or browse through here. For example, I want to see VM instance, my VM web app 01, and I want to see the syslog. And okay, this is a simple query. And here I can create a metric for this query. So I can use these metrics to populate some dashboards, or also to create alerts using this metric. And I can create directly a log-based alert, which means when this when a log matching this query, matching this filter happens, it will trigger an alert. Okay, so that's a cool feature to be notified when a job fails, a connection fails, a database get an error, or stuff like that. So here we can create alertings using logs. I can correlate the logs with different logs. For example, I want to see the logs of the Compute Engine and the Cloud SQL and correlate them, seeing what happens At the same time, we can use here. You just select your log and apply, and they will open in two screens to correlate, download the log. So there's a lot of features here that I can do with my logs. Okay, uh, back here to the presentation. Lori?
Yes, thank you so much for this presentation, all the best practices and information you shared, and then the live demos. Really appreciate it. If you did have any questions or you still have any, please continue to add those into the chat and we'll be sure to get to them. But before we get into the questions, starting with those that have been pre-submitted, just a couple of links and additional resources and next steps that we wanted to call out. So first is that link to the community. That is where you can engage in discussions on forums with each other and Googlers around all cloud topics and stay up to date on future events like this one. So definitely recommend you check that out. And the link is also in the YouTube description. The second one there is our feedback form. So we'll drop that into the chat shortly, but essentially we just want to hear what you thought about today's event, any other events that you've attended, and if you have any ideas or suggestions for future topics. We'd really love to hear from you so that we can make sure that we're catering our resources and events to best fit your needs. So we'll drop that into the chat shortly. And then lastly is some of our upcoming events. So you can see all of them at that short link right there. But the next ones we have coming up are tomorrow on preparing for peak season heavy traffic and launch events. Like we have Black Friday and Cyber Monday that are just around the corner. And then on May 10th, we have a deep dive into cost optimization techniques for GCE. And then on May 18th, one for your GKE users on best practices for stability, security, and performance of your GKE clusters. And again, you can check out all of those events coming up at that link and any of our past ones that you can check out on demand. All right, with that, we'll head into your questions. So if you want to go to the next slide, we'll start with those that have been pre-submitted. So our first question is, how do you leverage the observability insights with automated alerting and ticketing?
Okay, I kind of answered that in my presentation. So let's just back here on some slides. So here are some examples. So basically, I can create log-based alerts, and I can create alerts for my metrics. And one of those notification channels where I notify the alert is a pub sub. So I can use a pub sub to trigger, well, the sky is the limit when we're talking about pub sub. I can trigger a function that can do all the kind of automated thing. If I want to integrate that with my ticketing system, I can use also a pub sub for that. And I can also use a webhook, which is also a different notification channel. I can use a webhook to integrate the alert with my ticketing systems, or the webhook to trigger an automated tool that will do any magic here on my on this alert and on my resources. So I think this kind of wraps up the question.
Awesome, thank you. What kind of visualization and dashboards can we create as part of the observability suite?
Okay, I also think I've answered that on the demo, and just let me get back there to exemplify it. And okay, first thing is Google Cloud Operations create some automatic dashboards. These ones that I call type Google Cloud Platform are created automatically when I provision my resources. So somewhere in the past, I create a data set on BigQuery. So here is a dashboard with metrics, so I can monitor right off the box here my resources. I can also create my own dashboards, which is that custom types. This one that we created on the demo, for example. And we have basically all kind of visualizations that you can use to create your dashboards, such as line charts, all type of charts, tables, lists, scorecards, logs, and all that kind of stuff. So it's very rich.
Amazing. And one other thing I did want to call out is if you are using Looker or you're interested in using Looker for data visualization, that is an option as well. So if you do want to learn more about that, there is an event we have coming up in June that is focused on getting started with Looker. So I do recommend you check that out, and we will discuss like how the different integrations between these solutions that we've talked about today will relate to Looker.
Yeah, awesome.
Cool. Okay. How do you use managed Prometheus in cloud to monitor our on-prem applications?
Okay. Managed Prometheus is basically the same Prometheus that you use on your on-premises environment. So you can use basically the same way that you are already using to scrape metrics to your Prometheus into the managed Prometheus. You can use the Cloud Ops agent. It's an operator that can be used to scrape, to send metrics to managed Prometheus. You can use the binary, the modified binary that GMP has to be used to scrape metrics. All kind of libraries that are compatible with Prometheus you can use as well. So it's kind of the same thing that you are already using on your in your self-deployed Prometheus solution.
Awesome. All right, thank you. I think we have one more. If you do have any final questions, please feel free to use that chat box. What are the key aspects of observability for a data analytics project?
Okay, this is kind of a good question, but I don't think we have too much time to go deeper into that. But we made a section about data flow observability and troubleshooting in those webinars. So we're gonna put the link on the community somewhere. And there's also a chapter on the SRE book dedicated for data pipelines, and there we go into the details about how you monitor and the aspects of observability that you can use on a data analytics. But basically, there's some pillars of data observability, such as the freshness of the data, the quality of the data, the volume that are being ingested, the schema, if the schema is consistent, so your data is consistent between all the parts that are related, and the lineage of the data. So there's a lot of aspects, and this is a very cool question that I would really like to detail, but I don't think we have too much time. So maybe we're gonna detail that on the community. I think it's a better approach.
Sounds great. Yeah, maybe part 2.
Yeah, awesome.
Awesome. Are there any other questions that we had prepared? Otherwise, yeah, okay, that looks like it is it. Again, if you have any additional questions, feel free to put those into the chat, and we will include them in our recap post, or you can post them directly into the Google Cloud community, and someone from the community or the Google Cloud team will be happy to get back to you. And with that, the last thing is just dropping the feedback form here into the chat. So if you are able to, it just should take a couple minutes to complete that. We'd really love to hear from you. And thank you so much, Vitor, for your presentation and the information. We'd love to have you again. We really appreciate it. Do you have any final thoughts or recommendations before we close out today?
Yeah, use cloud operations. It's very cool. And thanks for having me. It was such a good time, and I hope to see everyone again in a new session. Use the feedback to maybe propose future sessions if you want to see something more detailed about cloud operations, about cloud observability. Put that in the feedback, and we can play something.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. I hope you have a good rest of your day or evening or wherever you are in the world, and we hope to see you